Hey everybody, it's Mark. Thanks for joining me today. You can see I have a collar on my shirt today, and so that means that I'm about to record a podcast with one of the several industry CEOs. I always like to dress appropriate when in the company of greatness. So with me today on my show is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Wooster Brush and Roller, Ben Maibach. Wooster continues to do a terrific job for independent paint retailers. Recently, the growth of that business, as well as other parts of their business, have caused Wooster to decide to make some very serious investments in the future of their business. And I noticed recently that Wooster had announced that they are adding over 600,000 square feet of manufacturing and warehouse space. That's to an organization that was only using about 550,000 square feet previous to that. So nearly doubling their manufacturing and warehouse capacity. And so that means that Wooster CEO Ben Maibach must have a tremendous amount of confidence in the growth that they're seeing in their business. To basically double their size is a tremendous investment. And so when I saw that, I reached out to him and asked him to be on. I know he's been on a couple of times before over the years that I've been doing these. Each time that he's on, he's actually gotten extremely high ratings compared to some of the other episodes, right up there in Dan Calkins' world. So this is a guy that obviously independent retailers like to hear from. And so I was glad to be able to get him on. Ben's a really great dude, and I appreciate his honesty and how directly he always answers my questions. So I think you're going to enjoy this episode. Before we move on, as always, I'm wearing some swag to start this. I absolutely love the swag that Andriot's, and that's in Shelbyville, Kentucky. The owner, BJ Andriot, is a dynamite guy, despite the fact that BJ is nearly my age and looks a hell of a lot better than me, which I do resent. I wanted to wear his swag today. BJ is a dynamite retailer. He's a large retailer in Benjamin Moore, wallpaper and window treatments, Sparrow and Ball. He's just added recently. He's got an absolutely beautiful store in Shelbyville, Kentucky. He's a very large retailer of the Big Green Egg, the Big Green Egg being that barbecue smoker sort of contraption. He's a very large retailer of that and the products that go along with it. So BJ's got a great business. He was one of the original 6 revolutionaries, one of the original 6 Minutemen who jumped on my new program when I started putting websites together. And so I really appreciate BJ. And he continues to do a great job with his business and in making some really nice swag. So thanks, BJ. I appreciate it. And now let's get to talking to Ben Maibach. Hey everybody, it's Mark. With me today on my episode is Ben Maibach. Ben is the president of Wooster Brush. Ben, how are you today?
Doing great, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So I actually cut you short in the in the warm up for this because we sort of jumped right into it. So why don't we start where we were, and if we can go backwards a little bit. I do have some questions about how the COVID economy is affecting you guys, but getting right to the point, you guys are adding a very significant warehouse and manufacturing facility to your complex out there. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, we're going to be adding 608,000 square foot facility on the north side of town. So we're on the south side of town. So it'll be about 7 miles from where we are today, but it'll be a nice addition to help us grow. We will occupy 400,000 of it right away, and then we'll lease out 200,000, and that'll be sort of for our mid growth. So what we'll end up with kind of as a short term, use the 400,000 for our use. Midterm is we would have that additional building built, ready to go for the next round of growth that we would like to see. And then on the plot of property, there's actually a room for an additional 200,000 to be built, to be added on to make the building eventually, over 800,000 square feet. So we've got kind of a short, mid, and long-term proposition to go, and we're really excited about the opportunities that it will allow us. If you've ever been to our current facility, it started in 1909 and has been added on to 20 or so times across.
Just looking through my mail here, I don't happen to see any invites. Have you been giving tours of your current facility? I haven't seen it.
Well, we've been slowing that down since
Yeah.
COVID started. But if you ever want to come to town, we'd be happy to show you around and give you a tour.
One of the things before we go on, I always like to mention to dealers, given the opportunity, paint dealers have a tendency to think of themselves as retailers, but even if you're one, two stores, a smaller organization, I encourage you to think of yourself as a CEO or as the president of your company. And Ben, I loved what you had to say. Like, this is what we're doing now. This is how it helps us in 5 years. This is how we're prepared to grow in 10 or 20 years with this decision. That kind of planning takes an organization a lot of work. And so you guys should be commended. That probably came from your office. So good for you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we try to plan long term around here at Wooster Brush. It's something that started long before I got here. We make most of our big decisions with the long term in mind, and so that's it's a fortunate spot to be in, and it's exciting to be a part of that. I should mention we'll officially break ground on October 20th for the new facility, and hope to be completed.
That's what I was looking for my invite for.
Yeah. Well, actually, they're going out today, so
there you go.
I'll make sure you get one if you want to come
to
to Worcester here in a couple of weeks. It'll be nice and crisp, a crisp fall day probably. I say we hope to have it completed by the end of next year, so it'll in total take about 13 months or so to build. Assuming raw materials come in for the building.
How big of an issue has that been for you recently, Ben, the raw materials?
From the building part, it hasn't affected us yet, as that stuff's still coming. But, like every other business, we are battling raw materials kind of from every front. One of the great things about Wooster Brush is we kind of view our inventory as just in case, not just in time. And so we tend to hold a lot of raw materials, a lot of finished good inventory. And so we've been able to manage pretty well, but normally where we have quite a bit of inventory on each thing, it's probably still substantial compared to what most companies might hold, but not up to where we like to have it as our safety cushion. So we're still doing okay. Every once in a while, new opportunities to improve pop up for us raw material wise, but we've been able to maintain. And some of the decisions that we made a few years ago, like making wood handles, for instance, here locally, have really paid off now as the time or the crunch happened. And so we don't have to rely on overseas so much for that.
What's been the biggest problem that you've had, the item that you've really struggled to keep on your customers' shelves through the shortages?
It moves, it keeps moving. And so I wish I only had one to talk about, but, for a while we were tight on, wood handles, and that sort of smoothed itself out. And, then different resins that were coming in to make the inner cores or roller covers, and that sort of worked itself out. And so it just keeps moving. Really, the reality is that it just keeps moving, and just how easy it used to be to order stuff and get it on time. Things are delayed if they're coming from overseas. Some of our raw materials come from overseas, not a ton, but enough that the shipping port delays impact us, and they do. But then we've been fortunate that we hold enough that finally they get released, and it puts us back in a pretty good situation. So
the last time you were on, you had mentioned this before, that Worcester was always known for almost excessive inventory. And you feel like that strategy helped you guys out during this crisis?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Typically we do that in an effort to allow ourselves a lot of flexibility in terms of production, while also maintaining, what had become standard, a 99.9% fill rate from Wooster Brush over the years. Obviously, the last couple of years with the COVID have tweaked that a little, but that's definitely our goal. That's where we're shooting to get back towards.
Can you say where you're at now, or would you rather not?
But we're largely over 90%, but with every customer, but which is pretty good. We're not getting yelled at for fill rates right now. Maybe that's a better way to say it.
Okay. And one of the problems with being at 90% is the guy calling you is always in the 10%, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so this has been a really challenging time for most of the executives that I'm talking to. And so for you personally, going through this, You've been dealing with the shortages, as we've talked about. I'm sure you're dealing with labor issues, and you guys are over 100 employees for sure. So I'm sure you're dealing with HR issues like vaccination and stuff like that. What's been the biggest challenge for you personally over the last 18 months or so of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think, the extra stress that COVID kind of puts on top of everything. By and large, we've been pretty fortunate with the way that, home improvement in general has reacted to COVID. Most people have seen a sales spike, which is a great
Right.
thing.
Yeah, we
But
all got the break that at least our problem is excessive demand, right?
correct, yeah, which
Right.
is
No
which is
problem's
much
a good
better.
one, but that's a better one than most.
Yeah, and so we always try to cap it by saying that, like we are generally fortunate. But we've been struggling with the COVID implementation and making sure that we're following all the rules that we need to follow, and not just to follow the rules, but really to keep our people safe. At Wooster Brush, our people are our purpose, and so keeping them safe was really the priority. And last time we talked about how we shut down initially,
That's right.
to sort of make sure that we had things in place to keep them safe. And by and large, we've had pretty good success at that. And it still remains our focus today, and our number one priority is kind of to keep our people safe. And so, that's just kind of the layer that we've learned to deal with now over the last 18 months, is something that just wasn't there before, or wasn't in the thought process. And then really the next thing, I think, and the next challenge is just people in general. Our folks have just been working and working crazy amounts of hours over the last 2 years, as it's more difficult to find new people now. But also, our folks are not. You can't just come off the street and work at Worcester Brush. It takes training and a lot of skill, and there's a lot of valuable experience. And so we rely on the people that are here a lot. And so just trying to find the balance of how do we work as much as we can without working too much to burn our folks out.
I did a consulting job for a dealer now. This is 2 weeks ago, probably be 4 or 5 weeks if you're watching this when it airs. And he actually has had to start closing his store at 3 o'clock rather than 5:30, because the combination of how much demand they have, combined with the labor shortages that are existing in the city where he just doesn't have the time and the manpower and can't access it to close at 5:30, which was his normal time, and have everything ready for 6:30 the next morning when the painters start coming in. And so he actually had to make sort of the strategic move to cut 2.5 hours of selling time every day just so that they can produce. Have you seen that sort of dramatic experience? What's the labor climate in Worcester specifically?
It's in Worcester, it's just like everywhere else. Everywhere you go, there's open jobs, and we've seen that at other businesses around. We haven't had to cut back our hours per se, but the business would dictate that we should work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. But the reality is we have to manage the way that our folks are working, because they are so skilled and so sort of talented. You can't just bring them in 7 days in a row, and every single day. We just can't do it. And so we're managing that and trying to keep the overtime at a reasonable level so that they can still be with their families, which is the whole reason why they work, right, is to provide for their family.
Right. And so you're talking about the brush and roller making. Those are skilled positions to you. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's very few jobs where you can just walk in and be good at it right away. Brush making, I would say, is for sure a challenge. One of the cool things I got to do when I started 7 years ago is go around and work at all the positions in the factory. And I spent kind of the first 3 weeks doing that to really learn how to do it. And it was not very long into it where they kind of didn't want me in the brush making world anymore.
Right.
I was not helping productivity at that time at all. And really, it's just something that takes time and skill to learn. There's lots of different pieces of all of our processes that require training to both do with your hands, but also to visually understand what you're looking at to make sure that our quality stays where it needs to. And so there's a lot of training that goes into nearly every position that we have.
And so one of the things that I thought when I first saw the story about your expansion that you guys are undertaking, was the balance as president of the company, and maybe there's a board there as well. The balance is that you must be considering when you look at investing into a period of demand that's growing so quickly that you know it can't keep up like that, right? I mean, the economy of the United States did not go up 50% on a permanent basis, right? I mean, eventually, this sort of demand is going to ebb. And how do you balance that with the enormous investments that you guys are making? I don't know about the real estate and construction in Wooster, Ohio, but I know the word 600,000 feet is a big one, right? So this is not a small investment.
No, it's not a small investment, and we are looking at it again over the long term. We've got a lot of good things coming from kind of a macro standpoint right now. Obviously, the COVID spike is one part of that, but the other couple is people kind of really change their priorities a little bit and have put more emphasis on their home, and we think that that's going to be a longer term deal. And while we might not have the full COVID spike, we do think people have changed. The other thing that's happening is you've got all the millennial generation, which is really 15% bigger than the generation before them, like myself, a Gen X. There's 15% more of them coming in, and they all kind of got pushed into home ownership here in the last few years, and they had time to do projects and try projects, particularly painting, where they realized they could do it. And so you've got this, 15% more of people coming into the market just now reaching that kind of 35-year age, and we look at kind of 35 to 65 as the prime spending years for home improvement. And so, when we look at it, we see a lot of good things happening from a macro perspective, not just COVID related, but just from demographics and looking at bigger things that would tend to say, assuming we keep doing things right, we're going to be growing and doing things well into the future.
We're going to be here for a while. And it's interesting to me when I look at that group, and obviously, I'm a paint geek. I'm not necessarily a consumer analyst or a marketing expert of any type, but still you see research when you look at that group, it's a group that prefers to buy premium in general, right? They prefer to shop online, or they're beginning to be very comfortable shopping online, and they're very comfortable buying premium products. And so that actually fits in nicely with what Wooster provides, and also the independent retailers that are, generally speaking, listening to this should continue to prosper.
For sure. And I think, we're getting a lot of additional use of our product that maybe we wouldn't have before. And when people use a Wooster product, they start to understand why it costs a little more, because it really makes painting easier. And so all of that use that we're getting now, people understand why you pay, the extra $1 for the roller cover or the extra $2 for the brush, because you get that benefit. Every day we're striving to provide products that give better results with less effort, right? That's why painters use us. That's why DIYers are now, using us more and more as we grow. So we're excited about the future, even post kind of COVID. Not sure. I wish I had a crystal ball to see exactly what it was going to look like, but we feel like there's a lot of good momentum coming from behind us to help us into the future.
And so let's talk a little bit about your independent retailer segment, right? That's a big part of your business. You guys are a very big player with independent retailers. The All Pro Group I was a member of for years. You guys are a very significant supplier to that group. Can you talk about how that business specifically is doing?
Yeah, I think that business specifically is doing better than most this year. I think some of the hardware home centers had to jump out earlier in the COVID experience, right? Because the paint stores got shut down. So the paint stores really right now are having even stronger years in 2021 than they did in 2020 for the most part. I'm sure there are outliers across.
Not a lot, actually. Yeah. I speak to dealers all the time. There are not a lot of outliers. I actually know of one store that did close specifically because of COVID. They had probably 50% of their business came to them every year from two particular markets that happened in their town every year that stopped happening. And so when COVID hit, this dealer literally lost 50% of his business overnight. But for the most part, if you survived the first month, every dealer I know is you survived the panic, and every dealer I know is doing extremely well right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's what we're seeing is kind of that strong growth. And so we're just trying to, provide best we can. We're not back to the, 99% fill rates that we're accustomed, but we're doing pretty well and trying to support all of our partners, in the best way we can. And so we're real excited about how our partners on this side of the business are doing.
How about the distributors? That's a big piece of this market for you guys as well. So have any of the changes in the volume of business that's coming through this segment, or the way product is currently being distributed in the United States, whether it's due to shortages or anything, has anything caused you to take another look at this model and consider how you're currently distributing to independent retailers?
Well, it's been, the interesting part is a lot of the folks have been buying product wherever they could get it. So the numbers over the last 18 months are a little fuzzy to determine exactly how people would like to buy. What do they want to buy direct? Do they want to buy through a distributor? But the reality is all segments of the business seem to be growing nicely. And so we're really, trying to support everybody as best we can. And I think probably some folks bought a little more through distribution than they would have liked, but maybe there are benefits that they saw in that, and they'll buy more in distribution, and maybe vice versa. So I'm not exactly sure how the mix will exactly shake out over the coming years, but it seems like there's enough business where all segments can win right now, and that's what obviously we're pulling for.
When I was a dealer, I bought a lot through distribution and direct, right? There's really good reasons to buy products, even something like a Wooster, which you may have the volume because it's sort of a core item. You may have the volume to buy that direct from Wooster and maybe save a few pennies doing that. But the reality is that it's nice to have every time you need to order something from a Pacoa or a Lancaster. It's nice to know that you always have $500 worth of Wooster products you can throw on there to get your minimum order up, so you can make shipping and freight prepaids and stuff like that. So there's definitely reasons to use both.
Yeah, and that's what we see, with all of our customers is it's a very unique decision point for each and every one, and it really depends on what factors each one looks at and values, and that's kind of it kind of plugs in. And so we're very happy to be partnered with the distributors we are, and we're very happy to ship direct. We kind of let the end customer tell us how they'd like to buy it, and that's how we'd like to sell it to them. So we're pretty agnostic when it comes to that type of business.
And how about your outside reps and how you sort of project Wooster at shows and National Hardware, All Pro shows? Have you guys started to do that again, or are you still laying low?
No, we are out at shows. So this last month was really the first time that we've been out and about at shows at several different customer shows, and so it's an exciting time for us. It's we like to do things face to face at Wooster. I would say we're a little old school like that. It's okay to do them, like we're doing now here, but we prefer to do business face to face, and that's how our guys kind of get excited, right? It's energizing to be at a show. It's energizing to talk to a bunch of different customers, and so that part is really exciting for us. The other part that's exciting for us is we went through a rebranding about 2 years ago, and we didn't have any shows in 2020 to talk about it, and really
Right.
for the first half of 2021. And so, there's good parts of that as we got through all of our old inventory, and
Right.
everything
People
is
were
new.
happy
But
to have anything. We don't care what the label says. Send me a brush.
exactly. And so these new booths, or the new shows that we're attending here in the last month, have the new branding, and it's sort of it's exciting for us to see all that come together. Sort of finally, as we had this vision 2 years ago or so when we started the project. So it's exciting to see it now fully out there at the show level.
And Ben, my last question, what can independent retailers, you said earlier today, you're do so much planning for the future. What can independent retailers expect to see in the coming years from Wooster? It sounds like you've got quite a bit planned.
Yeah, I think we've got a focus on new product development that's going to hopefully kick into gear here, as that's been a renewed focus over the last couple of years. We've always had industry first, and we've been an innovator throughout time, and we really want to push that. So, I think you'll see some innovative stuff coming from Wooster Brush. I think you'll see our desire is very much to get back to those 99.9% fill rates, so that you're not out of stock when you need to sell something. I think that's really what we're striving to get towards. And, amidst all of that, we're never going to sacrifice our quality. We were around 170 years because we've been making pretty good stuff. And I don't have to be the smartest guy in the world. As long as I'm making and our folks are making the best products in the world, people are still going to need them and want to buy them. And so I think you can expect the quality level to stay where everybody's accustomed to, which is right at the top. So we hope to grow as our partners grow. And, I think the independent channel is growing. It's faster than any parts of the business right now. And so we appreciate all the partners on that side.
So Ben, as we get ready to wrap this up, do you have any final thoughts? Anything you're looking to say to independent paint retailers?
Yeah, I think mainly we just want to say thank you for the continued support in the business that you guys have provided us. We are striving every day to get back to the levels we want to get back to, so that you guys can fully support your customers in the same way. And so we just want you to know that we're committed to that, and we're committed to you getting back to where we need to be and shipping you fully and maintaining that quality level. And so we just appreciate the partnership from all the folks that might be listening to this, and from all of our customers. So we're fortunate to be where we are, in the midst of all the COVID craziness, and we appreciate all of our partners that have helped us sort of navigate through and given us some grace when things weren't perfect, and allowing us to sort of get back to some somewhat acceptable level now, but not acceptable. It's not acceptable to us. We're going to get back to where we've been traditionally, and that's really our goal. And so if the supply chain could just smooth out slightly for all of us, we could get there here sooner than later. So I just wanted to really, really say thank you more than anything.
Well, Ben Maibach, president of Wooster Brush in Wooster, Ohio, that's a great way to end it. So I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the time too. It's always good to see you and talk to you.